Some experimentation with Three.js and GitHub Copilot AI. I've got a Three.js scene loaded in IntelliJ, and I want to provide some prompts and see what the result is. Let's start by saying just create an example scene. And it looks like we've got all the things: scene, camera, some basic cube geometry that rotates. It's pretty standard stuff. Paste that in. Off to a good start. As a TypeScript project, I'd like to change the way these imports work. Select these, and then we'll do an auto import to resolve all. And let's optimize and format that. Excellent. All right, so in place of this cube, let's try some different prompts and see if we can create some different geometries. Let's get rid of the cube geometry. Don't need to add it to the scene. Get rid of this rotation. That should give us a blank scene. All right, let's continue on with our chat. Let's create a new prompt here, and I want to see if it can create a castle geometry. And here we go. It's pretty impressive. We've got our castle as a box, and it understands the concept of towers. We've got 4 of them. Let's try this out. Let's add it to the scene. Let's see what we've got. And yeah, sort of. Kind of hard to tell what's going on there. I think maybe we can add some orbit controls to this and get a better perspective on the scene. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's continue. Let's see if the chat can produce this. Let's add some orbit controls to the scene. And yeah, this looks like the basic gist of it. Even worked out the right import, I think, through standard lib. Perfect. Let's optimize these imports. And I think we have a duplicate animate function here. That's kind of unfortunate. It's like the way that VS Code does the merge, or the way that JetBrains AI assistant also does the merge is so nice. But yeah, we've definitely got something that, it's a basic building block here. It actually is kind of logical. It's kind of a nice starting point. Let's continue on. Let's try to add a terrain. So add a terrain to the scene, and presumably this is going to create a plane. Probably only a plane. Terrain geometry, yeah, I mean, basically kind of the absolute minimum. Let's optimize these imports and check it out. And yeah, I mean, Okay, well, we've got a castle, and we've got a basic terrain here. This might make more sense if we change this material. Let's go with the mesh standard material. Let's give us a better idea of what we're working with. Yeah, and that's starting to make some more sense. I mean, actually, it was kind of cool. Maybe add some anti-aliasing to this. I'll make it a little bit clearer. And conceptually, it is like the construct of a castle. I mean, it is a good building block that you could either manipulate or just continue on through prompts and really build this out. I think let's try something completely different. Let's just comment all of this out and let's start a new prompt. We'll keep the terrain and let's build onto our scene. And I think I'm going to try, let's try to add a tree. Let's go back into Copilot. Let's make sure that we're referencing the files and our prompt. Let's add a tree to the scene. Yeah, I mean, contextually, it's there, right? There's the trunk, leaves. It decided to use a function, sort of factory create, and then add. Let's take this function and let's insert it into our code here. And I think initially I'm going to remove it from the function. So yeah, let's do that, right? Let's get rid of the end of this function, the return. And instead, let's just manually add the singular instance of the tree here. For as primitive as it is, I have to say I'm actually kind of impressed, right? It's kind of like this low poly feel. Let's put it back in the function, and then let's try to expand and see if it will use the function that it just created. So let's kind of create a forest. So let's create a prompt that is to add multiple trees, and let's see if it reuses the create tree function. And so, yeah, the new code here, number of trees, a loop or at random positions. Let's try that out. It is aware of the create tree function, and there it is. Yeah, I mean, floating would be super cool if they were all more cohesively on the terrain. Let's see if we can get some player interaction here, and let's go with the classic capsule. So a new prompt, let's add a capsule to the scene, and let's see what we get. So first of all, we're generating some capsule geometry, which is actually kind of interesting. Looks like the top and bottom are going to be spheres. Yeah, presumably the middle as a cylinder, yes. Put together in a group. And identified as player, as we asked. Let's go ahead and add that to the scene. And there it is. Proportions are way off, but I mean, it is cohesively understanding the task. Now that we have our player capsule, let's see if we can add some interactivity to it. Let's move the player with the arrow keys. Okay, pretty primitive. We have a notion of speed and kind of an interesting switch statement here, but I think this will work. Let's insert this code. And yeah, arrow keys are moving the capsule around. Very rudimentary, but I mean, it is the building blocks that we clearly could expand on these prompts, but just for the initial implementation, it's actually somewhat impressive. Let's see if we can create a camera controller that follows the capsule like a third-person camera controller. So yeah, in our animate function, it's going to update the camera position and look at the player object. Let's take that code and insert it into our animate function. And yeah, that's pretty cool. Although something kind of funky going on here. It is working. It's kind of a cool movement actually, but yeah, I think that we still have our orbit controls in play. Let's go back and let's just manually remove the controls update function from that, and yeah, there's the more expected result. Camera is following the capsule. The most rudimentary implementation, but it is working. Let's see if we can expand on this player interaction by adding a jump function. Make the player jump with the spacebar key. Okay, we have some new player properties. We've expanded the switch block with a new case for jumping, and then in the animate function, kind of like a gravity simulation. Rudimentary. I think it's going to work. God, this would be the perfect opportunity for a merge. I think we're just going to have to hand assemble this back in there. Yeah, let's definitely do that. Not a big deal. Let's start out with the individual properties here: jump speed, gravity, velocity, and is jumping. And then we need the additional case statement in the switch block for the spacebar key. And finally, we need that little gravity simulation in the animate function. Okay, this actually does not work because there is no initial movement of Y on the jump. So let's go ahead and let's just add in a jump at 5, and that's kind of a ridiculous height. But I mean, it is working. I mean, in the most rudimentary of way, and all these prompts could be expanded upon and refined. I'm actually extremely impressed with the context awareness of the AI, and I've repeated this experiment a couple of different times, and I've noticed that the castle is just subtly different, just very small nuances, and even the approach, the implementation has been different. And I found that you can take this to a fairly sophisticated level. For example, here, a perlin noise shader that is animating, all auto-generated by AI. I'm not sure where any of this code comes from, but it's pretty impressive.